At dawn in Jebel Ali, Dubai, on a Friday in late May, a dark SUV paused beside a corrugated warehouse while a single GPS ping placed the vehicle inside the perimeter for under 15 minutes. A hotel keycard in Business Bay stopped registering door opens the night before, yet minibar charges continued as if someone still lived there. The border e-gate system showed no exit for the woman who had arrived less than 2 weeks earlier. But a maintenance camera with a visible time code caught a trolley rolling toward a bay with an industrial cutter. If this was a honeymoon, why did the logs point from a silk suite to a machine floor? And who moved her there? Before we begin, subscribe if you want disciplined investigations every other day. Natalia Soko, 23, moved through an ordinary week in Wrocław that looked like many young marriages. She worked part-time at a dental clinic as a sterilization tech, steady hands and careful checklists. Marek, her husband, took rideshare shifts after classes. Rent sat like a brick on their budget, and a summer of postponed trips left a stale quiet in the small flat. Friends posted photos of skylines and palms. She scrolled late and saved them into folders named for places she had never seen. The message that changed the pattern did not shout. It arrived from a verified blue badge account that showed a man in a white kandura speaking at a charity gala. His name read as Faris Al-Mansour, with captions about schools, clinics, and a logistics company in the Gulf. The grid looked clean: boardroom glass, runway photos, a plaque from a foundation that sounded international enough to pass. Mutuals included one Warsaw stylist and a Krakow event planner. The account followed her back within an hour. Per the feed, he was a philanthropist and an investor. Per his direct messages, he had noticed her volunteer posts and admired her discipline. Status theater did the rest. The pressure point was simple. Natalia wanted motion, not chaos, not escape. Just proof that her life could take her farther than a tram line. Faris offered a fast lane. He suggested a visit to Dubai. He said there was a role with a health venture he backed, a stipend for training, accommodation in a tower with a view of the canal, and a private tour of a clinic he supported. He layered it with romance in the edges, words about compatibility, family, and a future. He signaled seriousness with logistics. A travel coordinator sent a flight proposal with a 6-letter booking record, a tourist e-visa pre-approval, and airport meet and assist. The email signatures matched a real company domain. The hotel reservation attached showed dates, a suite type, and a nightly rate high enough to make the offer feel not only possible but inevitable. Marek heard the top line and pushed back, then softened when he saw the paperwork. The documents looked right. Natalia framed it as a site visit and a short break to see a different sky. They spoke in circles and returned to the same plan. She would go for less than a fortnight. She would send photos. She would decide tonight. The mask around Faris held. Online profiles linked to a logistics group registered under a holding company in the DIFC. A construction arm surfaced in trade news around port contracts. A charitable trust showed photos with local officials. None of it proved character. All of it conveyed access. The image of a sheikh did not need a royal line to work. It needed chauffeurs, access badges, and rooms that opened without lines. Natalia completed the forms. She uploaded a scan of her passport main page to the travel coordinator's encrypted link. A calendar invite appeared on her phone. Outbound from Warsaw Chopin to Dubai International via an overnight, meet and assist at arrivals, hotel check-in pre-cleared. Meet and assist. A PDF itinerary listed a visit to a wellness clinic in City Walk, a lunch at a private dining room, and a sunset boat ride. The list read like a vacation disguised as business, or business disguised as a vacation. Both interpretations made the same promise. Safety in a curated lane. Quiet doubts did brush the edges. The stipend contract referred to cultural compatibility as a condition. The hotel confirmation showed 2 occupants, though she was traveling alone. Faris explained that as a clerical thing through the coordinator. The second name would be added later if needed. The concierge number connected to a real desk. A test call confirmed her arrival details. The e-visa approval arrived. She printed it and put it with her boarding pass. Full arrived. The last evening in Wrocław, she packed light but careful. Clinic scrubs for the tour, a simple dress for dinner, and a smartwatch she had received from Marek on their wedding week. He asked her to wear it always and to keep it on while sleeping, so the health app could track rest. She said she would. They looked at the itinerary again. They checked the weather in Dubai. She set alarms for airport timing and downloaded the airline app. At dawn on departure day, she moved through the airport with a carry-on and a printed voucher for meet and assist. The departures board showed her flight on time. She texted a photo of the gate area. She stepped into a line that moved faster than most. A handler in a blazer with an airline badge met her at the jetway and guided her into the cabin. The commitment became real in small, clear steps. Boarding beeps, buckles, doors closed. The binding step came before sunrise over the Black Sea. The airline system marked her presence aboard. The PNR flipped to checked in and flown, and a set of promises she could not retract locked in behind her. The ordinary world slipped under clouds. By the time Marek's morning alarm rang in Wrocław, she was already descending over dunes and glass. A threshold had been crossed. The ticket was used. The lane ahead was not reversible without help. Dubai met her with a polished script. A meet and assist agent stood past the jet bridge with a tablet that showed her name. The agent moved her past the longer immigration queue to a bank of e-gates. The system read her face and passport chip. Of e-gates. The border platform stamped a silent record that would later become a line in a case file. Entry permitted, mid-morning, Terminal 3. A driver in a dark suit waited by the exit with a card that read NS. The SUV's cabin smelled like new leather and bottled citrus. The city rose fast. Highways, towers, cranes, heat pressed against the glass. The hotel in Business Bay carried a name she knew from travel magazines. A duty manager handled check-in with a warm efficiency. The keycard sleeve listed her suite and a welcome cocktail time. A fruit tray and a handwritten card waited inside. The concierge called to confirm a dinner reservation. The room looked like a promise kept. Canal view, white sheets, a small desk with a charging dock. Faris sent a message that the lunch at the clinic would be the following day. He suggested a spa hour to rest after the flight. She followed the suggestion and slept under cool air, smartwatch humming against her wrist. Commitments stacked. The next morning, a driver took her to City Walk. A clinic tour turned out to be a presentation by a wellness brand manager with brochures and slides on bio-tracking and executive packages. Natalia asked simple questions about sterilization protocols, equipment models, and water quality logs. Her competence showed in the details she that cared about, and the staff noticed. A lunch followed in a private room, where Faris appeared with an assistant. He was charming in a way that feels practiced, attentive, still present. He spoke of opportunity and partnership. Papers slid across the table. A short-term consultancy, A stipend wired weekly, accommodation included. A stipend wired. He asked her to stay in Dubai a bit longer to immerse. The plan was expanding before she could measure it. Quiet red flags drifted in like grit. A house manager asked for her passport to register the stay with authorities, promising it would be returned tomorrow. The hotel system added a second name to the room file. Her phone camera rolls from that day showed fewer city shots and more indoor views, as if someone made most choices about where time would be spent. The concierge called her by a new honorific. She posted less. She texted Marek with shorter messages. She rationalized each small shift. It all sat within a culture with different rules, she told herself. She had wanted to see, and now she was seeing. A system entered the story with its own logic. The calendar entered the story. Invites began to populate her phone from a coordinator address she had not seen before. They slotted gym sessions, clinic walkthroughs, dinner in a private dining room, and a boat tour. The coordination was tight enough to feel safe. It also left little unstructured time. The bank app showed a stipend landing as promised, converted at a good rate. An expense card appeared in a small envelope at the front desk. It carried a spending limit that felt generous. The driver route history, if anyone had seen it, would show regular trips between the hotel, a tower in DIFC, and a cluster of low buildings west toward the port. In that same window, the flags became louder. A personal security man began to wait in the hotel lobby, back to the wall, eyes scanning. In the hotel lobby, the house manager suggested she swap her SIM for a local one to avoid roaming bills, then offered to help set it up. When the swap finished, the smartphone began to behave differently. Some notifications never arrived. She assumed settings had not carried over. The smartwatch still logged steps and sleep. It would later give a timeline that did not lie. An email arrived labeled non-disclosure, with language about public appearance and family privacy. She signed. It felt, in context, like a standard thing to do near wealth. She did not tell Marek about that part. A late afternoon tour took her to a logistics yard attached on paper to the construction arm. She saw from the car a row of warehouses and a set of machines one would expect where materials are cut and shaped. The driver said nothing. Where materials are cut. The visit had not been in the calendar, and it lasted under 15 minutes. The vehicle's GPS would later testify. The hotel log would not show an absence, because someone ordered room service to the suite within the hour and signed for it under her name. The personal story drifted forward fast. Faris spoke in a quiet, private way about a ceremony that would formalize intentions. He framed it as a cultural step. There would be paperwork and a simple ritual. It would secure her status and unlock certain permissions. In the language he used, it sounded protective. In the mechanics, it was binding. Natalia, tired and flattered, said she would consider it. A legal aid produced documents already typed with her name. Legal aid produced. The non-reversible step arrived in a way that felt like a small errand. The house manager collected her passport to extend the stay registration, and a driver delivered her to a notary office where she placed a signature on a stack she had scanned too quickly. When she returned to the hotel, the room safe did not hold her passport because it had never been put there. She called the desk. The desk said it was with the house manager and would be returned in the morning. Morning came and went. The passport did not come back. At this point, the trip was no longer a visit. An invisible hand had closed on the most basic document of movement. She had crossed a line that would not be easy to uncross. had crossed a line. Promises in glossy brochures began to fracture under the weight of logs. The calendar still filled, the drivers still arrived, and the suite still showed charges as if a guest was spending long evenings with room service trays. Yet the hotel keycard for her name, when pulled later by investigators, showed its last door open late on a Thursday night. After that, no green light near that handle ever flashed again. The minibar was restocked and the account posted for items the next day, but the staff member delivering them did so to a door held open by a man from the security team. The signature on the slip read N. Soko in a hand that was not hers. The smartwatch on her wrist told a different story. Its health app showed a sleep session ending before dawn on Friday, then a flat line of steps for the rest of the day. The phone told another of steps for the rest. The local SIM had been refitted, and location services were now controlled by an access profile managed by the house manager. But even curated systems leak. A ride-hailing app cached locations and left a breadcrumb inside recent pickups. One of those points sat not at the hotel, but near the edge of an industrial yard off a service road by the port. The cover story, when Ferris's aide later spoke to curious staff, was that Natalia had decided to return home and left in a hurry to catch an early flight. That line would have been easy to accept without traction if other lines had settled the same way. They did not. Border logs showed no exit under her passport. The airline systems held no checked-in record for her name on any outbound that day or the next. An airport camera never caught her face in departures. The only official movement record across a border was the entry stamp from days earlier. She had not left the country, yet someone had signed room service slips and continued to make the suite look occupied. Leverage began to show itself. With the passport held for processing, she could not move without permission. With the SIM swapped and managed, her messages could be slowed or seen. With a stipend card that could be cut at a keystroke, she could be made dependent inside a furnished cage. Ferris's status network, drivers, managers, security, controlled the flows around her. The logistics yard represented another kind of control, space to move things unseen, and time to do it without interruption. Unseen. And if the glossy life was a mask, the warehouse was what sat under it. The CCTV frame that would later matter came from a maintenance camera inside one of those low buildings. It was not set for beauty or clarity. It watched a corridor for safety. Its time code matched the GPS log of the SUV's short stop at the yard on Friday morning. In the frame, a trolley rolled toward a bay where an industrial cutter sat idle. Two men in coveralls moved with practiced speed. The trolley was draped, and the image held no gore. Across a corner of the scene, a visitor sticker flashed as a shoulder turned. The serial, when enhanced by a lab, matched a guest pass issued at the tower 2 nights earlier for a private spa hour. The contradiction had full shape now. A honeymoon script said rest and luxury. The quiet record said control and movement to a machine. The hotel logs lied about presence. The border system denied departure. It about present. The health app said stillness where there should have been steps. Something had broken between the story and the world. Natalia tried to flip the situation in a small way before the window closed. In the early hours of that Friday, she left a voice memo in a hidden app she used for clinic notes, a habit from work. In clipped phrases, she recorded names, hotel room numbers, the make and plate of the SUV she had memorized, and the location of the yard gate she had noticed on the earlier drive. She added the first 3 digits of the visitor sticker number she had seen on a colleague's shoulder in the spa hallway. Visitor sticker number. She saved the file under a boring title and tucked the phone deep in the room, safe under a pocket of the lining, because she had learned that people who check safes do not always check the seams. By mid-morning, the room safe stood open. Hotel engineering had been called by a security man who said the guest had forgotten the code. The phone disappeared for a span of hours and returned with the hidden app deleted. The voice memo survived only in a cloud that synced later when a backup ran on a weak signal by the lobby. The backup would become an artifact in a chain that law would have to pull days later. Late that day, in the yard, the industrial cutter spun up and then rattled down. The maintenance log showed a fault report filed by a technician who noted feed jam, non-material input suspected. Words that were clinical and careful suspected. A manager signed a work order to service the cutter the next afternoon. That service request created a time box, a pause in a plan that had moved fast until then. The constraint locked hard just after sunset. Natalia's passport did not return. Her expense card failed at a downstairs cafe. The house manager's number rolled to voicemail. The driver at the curb watched her through the lobby glass and then looked away. The hotel keycard still opened the elevator, but the suite door showed red. At the service desk, a shift supervisor smiled and said a new card would be made shortly. It did not come. In the systems that govern space, time, money, and movement, she no longer held keys. The story now sat on a narrow edge between a curated life and a machine floor. The promised world had failed, and the records proved it. The next move would decide whether the logs became a memorial or a map. Whether the logs control arrived as policy and posture, not noise. The house manager held the passport in the name of registration. The hotel's system flagged her as a VIP, where requests routed through a liaison, not the front desk. The SIM swap placed her phone under an access profile labeled with a concierge code. The personal security man drifted near the elevators, a human turnstile. The calendar filled every hour. A curated life had become a schedule that she did not drive. Jurisdiction added friction. The suite sat in Business Bay under city police. The logistics yard sat behind the gate of a free zone where company passes and port badges decided who could ask questions. The border record lived in the systems of the residency authority. Each node had its own desk, its own form, its own habit of saying that another office would handle it. Status multiplied the delays. Handle it. A wealthy patron could start calls that softened compliance. A manager could ask a hotel to hold inquiries for guest privacy. A company lawyer could insist that yard cameras were internal. None of this denied the truth. It stalled who could reach it. Natalia recognized patterns in a simple way. Her work at the clinic had trained her to trust logs over performance. She took her last 3 minutes and left marks a process person would leave. She wrote on a folded spa intake card the plate letters she had memorized and the rough locator of the yard gate. She slid the card beneath the mattress liner at the foot of the bed, because housekeepers change sheets, but seldom peel liners. She used the health app to tag a note to self under a sleep entry with initials of the house manager and the security chief. She turned her watch band so that its inside edge, scarred from a fall in Wrocław, would be easy to identify if it ever appeared alone. These were not hero moves. They were crumbs left by a steady hand. Silence on Marek's phone created a different kind of motion. Missed check-ins stacked. A bank push told him a hotel hold was extended, but no airfare had posted. He logged into their shared cloud to pull photos for comfort, and found instead the backup of her clinic note app. The small voice memo she had recorded before dawn sat there with plate letters, a tower name, and half a visitor sticker serial. A tower name. He printed the summary and walked it to the consulate of his country in Dubai, a building with a metal detector, a reception window, and a map of districts pinned with colored flags. The consulate treated it as a welfare check with risk. A one-page assistance form took his statement. A staffer wrote a note verbale that asked the residency authority to confirm entry and exit and requested city police to conduct a welfare check at the hotel. The first answers drew the map tighter. Border logs showed entry at Terminal 3 and no exit. A hotel confirmed a current in-house file for her name, even as the electronic lock audit, when pressed, showed the last door open late on a Thursday. That contradiction pushed the file from courtesy to concern. City police handed the case to a criminal investigation team. Police handed a young detective who cared more for logs than rooms, asked for the keycard audit, the visitor sticker ledger for the spa floor, and the lobby camera feed for service corridors. The hotel tried to funnel all requests through corporate security. Corporate security tried to funnel them through counsel. The detective wrote the first formal demand and copied the public prosecution. The documents moved, slowly at first, and then with the weight of a stamp. Free Zone Security did not open its cameras on a phone call. It required a letter from city police and a reference from the public prosecution. The detective secured both. The plate letters from Natalia's memo matched an SUV registered to a subsidiary of the logistics group. The Free Zone pulled Toll Plaza ANPR hits that put the SUV near the port that Friday at dawn. A maintenance camera inside a low building in the yard showed a trolley under a drape pushed toward a cutter bay. A shoulder in the frame flashed a visitor sticker with a serial that matched a spa pass issued on a different night in a different place. The story stopped being a question of taste and became a question of acts. Jurisdiction friction persisted. The hotel asked to schedule interviews next week. The company lawyer demanded that yard footage be viewed on-site only. The residency authority said it would reply in due course about the passport status. The detective pushed under his own procedures. He logged the file, named the units, and opened a second channel, the consulate. If the guest was a national of another state, the welfare check could carry diplomatic attention. The welfare attention would shrink timelines. Natalia's choice to flip from target to operator had already happened in the small acts she left in the room and the cloud. Marek's choice to become an operator happened at a kiosk printer and a consular counter. The detective's choice was procedural: treat status theater as ordinary background and follow the instruments. 3 choices aligned into a plan. A controlled meeting was proposed with the house manager on the pretext of returning the passport at a tower office in the financial district the next day. The consulate agreed to observe. The yard, meanwhile, would receive an unannounced safety inspection backed by Free Zone Security and police so that machines could be stopped and bays opened. The day closed with times on paper, units named, and a trigger point set. On paper, a code phrase was written into the log to mark the start. The call would begin when the house manager said the word documents. Phones were charged, patrol cars were assigned. The plan waited for morning. The pivot was in place. The case moved from collection to action with a schedule that others could not quietly move. Morning split into 2 lanes and 1 clock. Lane 1 sat in the lobby of a tower in the financial center. Lane 2 moved through a gatehouse west of the port with clipboards and hard hats. The clock linked them by a single phrase on a form that said, "Start in the tower." A plain sedan pulled to the curb. 2 detectives stood in the coffee line beside a consular staffer who had a folder of documents labeled with her name. The front desk called up to a suite controlled by the logistics group. A house manager moved through the revolving door with a leather folio and the quiet smile of someone expecting a pleasant duty. He asked for a receipt for the passport transfer. The word "documents" landed. The clock started. A team outside tightened their loop. At the yard, Free Zone Security opened the side gate for a safety inspection team backed by police. The work order written the previous day for the cutter, citing a jam and a service appointment that afternoon, had created a legal reason to step onto the floor. The inspector sealed the cutter's control panel and asked for the maintenance log. A technician handed over the book. The entry from the afternoon before noted a feed jam and a smell that did not track with composite board. The wording was careful. The signature sat under it in a hand too quick to be comfortable. The signature's evidence lined up into a chain firm enough for court. First link, the border system showed entry for Natalia and no exit. Second link, the hotel keycard log recorded the last door open on a Thursday night, after which no guest access occurred. Third link, the health app showed a sleep session ending before dawn on Friday and no steps after. Fourth link, the toll plaza, ANPR hit, placed the SUV registered to the group near the port around the time the health app went still. Fifth link, the maintenance camera time code matched that window and showed the trolley rolled toward the cutter bay, with a visitor sticker serial that matched a spa pass from 2 nights prior, in a different site managed by the same network. Sixth link, the cutter's clean-out tray held fibers and residue that did not belong to treated wood, plus a sliver of silicone in a shape consistent with a smartwatch band retainer. Back at the tower, the house manager signed for a passport that was not in his folio. He produced an explanation that sounded smooth in rooms like this. The detective produced a paper that changed the temperature. A detention notice for questioning on suspicion of unlawful detention and interference with evidence. The house manager did not resist. He asked to call counsel. The call went to a number controlled by the logistics group. The group phoned a lawyer. The lawyer phoned a senior officer. The senior officer asked for time. The chain of calls became another artifact. In the yard, police taped the cutter bay and walked a tight circle along a drainage trench that fed a filter trap. The trap cover was lifted. The inspector did not need horror to see significance. Within the mesh, a caught object lay in a shape any watch owner would know. The inside edge was scarred as described by Marek. Photographs were taken. The object was bagged. Forensics marked a tray, a bolt, a latch. Nothing traveled fast. Each item had a line and a signature. The security chief for the network stepped onto the floor with a neutral face and a set of questions about permits. He had walked past concierge desks for years. He expected those looks to carry here. They did not. A detective read the language of the order. The security chief handed over his phone. It held a calendar with blocks that matched Natalia's last week. It also held a ride log that someone had thought to clear and had not cleared fully. A cash page showed a pickup at the hotel and a drop near the yard 2 mornings before. The company lawyer arrived late enough to matter less. The company cited privacy and property. The free zone manager cited safety and law. The lawyer asked for a pause until afternoon. The inspector pointed at the work order for a service visit scheduled for that afternoon, and said the machine would not spin until the state finished. The cutter sat quiet under a tape line. For once, the machine followed the schedule set by others. In the tower, the second arrest happened without drama. The security chief's colleague, the one who had stood at elevators at the hotel, walked into the lobby with a visitor sticker still inside his jacket. The number matched the spa ledger for the night the CCTV had recorded a shoulder in the frame. Matching numbers do simple work. They are not a story, but they end one work. The plan's final piece was a controlled search of a back-of-house corridor at the hotel. City police, with a court order and hotel counsel present, opened a service door the staff had described as rarely used. A camera in that hall had been set to overwrite weekly. The detective had pushed to pull it before the cycle. The clip showed a trolley, different from the draped one at the yard, but it held the same form. Weight under fabric, 2 men in coveralls, a visitor sticker on one sleeve, a house manager at the far end, holding a door. The time code placed it just after the keycard log's last green light. The operation moved with a phrase and closed with paper. 3 people left sites in handcuffs. Vehicles were seized for trace. Phones went into Faraday bags. Seized for trace. The group's office doors stayed unlocked but watched. A prosecutor signed a freeze on funds in one expense account. The consulate made a note about custody and asked for the case number in writing. The clock, once running for the other side, turned. The initiation had happened. The controlled moves were underway. The case no longer depended on anyone's goodwill. The state advanced in measured steps. Forensics returned a first report that a fragment from the cutter tray carried organic material consistent with a human source and trace elements that matched a silicone blend used in consumer watch bands. A later report would add a genetic match to Natalia from a hairbrush collected from the hotel suite. The health app log, the keycard audit, and the border record formed a spine that no performance could bend. The prosecution filed charges for unlawful detention, assault leading to death, destruction of evidence, and conspiracy under the penal code. The names on the front line were the house manager, the hotel security liaison, and the yard foreman. The network behind them moved to limit damage. Faris did not sit for an interview that week. His lawyers spoke of charity and distance. His passport, unlike Natalia's, moved freely. Airport cameras caught him in a private terminal 2 nights after the arrests. The border system recorded his exit on a route that skirted questions. A red notice did not appear. The file was not there yet. A watch list and a diffusion request went out through the National Central Bureau. It was a form with blocks and codes, and a short narrative that avoided adjectives. The central question was answered in pieces that fit. Who moved her from the silk suite to the machine floor? The house manager and the security liaison controlled the back-of-house doors and the service elevator. They used a trolley and timing that skipped guest corridors. A driver under contract positioned the SUV at a service entrance, while a second man kept the lobby clean of attention. How was it done? By capturing the 3 simple levers that govern a traveler: the passport, the phone, and the schedule. The passport was kept under the mask of registration. The phone was fitted with a local profile that could be managed. The schedule was filled until nothing unguarded remained. When the logs contradicted the cover story, the same network faked presence with room service slips and managed absence with free zone gates and machines. The arrests were real and public. The outcomes beyond them were softer, real and public. Hotel Council agreed to a policy change circulated as an internal circular. Passports were to be scanned and immediately returned, and any exception required a manager and a written justification. The Free Zone issued a safety bulletin that mandated maintenance cameras facing cutter bays, not just corridors, and required that visitor sticker serials be logged on digital systems, not paper alone. The Residency Authority tightened the welfare check protocol for foreign citizens, whose entry logs had no matching exit after a set period. These were small hardenings of a system that had let status carry the day for too long. Marek flew home with a sealed container and a set of papers that no couple plans to hold. A consular aide walked him to the curb with a list of contacts for grief and for counsel. He carried in his bag the watch band fragment returned after the court allowed it. It was a thin piece of silicone with a scar along its inner edge where the material had once caught on a door in Wrocław. It was proof of a life and proof of a method. The logistics group went quiet on social feeds. The board photos stayed, but drew fewer hearts. Lawyers ran out clock in other rooms. The group's accounts showed transfers into new shells in other zones, the numbers printed in lines that said nothing about people. The file in City Police stayed open with a tab for the man who had left through the private terminal. Partial disruption fit the facts. The hands were in custody. The face had slipped the net. Procedural aftermath moved in layers. The net. Statements were taken from hotel staff, drivers, and 2 spa attendants who had issued the sticker that later matched the maintenance frame. Buildings logged new camera checks. A prosecutor's office set a timeline for trial on the arrested 3. The consulate compiled a lessons memo that listed what had worked: a cloud backup caught before deletion, a welfare check asked early, and a detective who trusted logs more than rooms. The memo suggested one more low-cost change for travelers: a standing rule to share a border stamp photo and a second copy of the itinerary with a person outside the lane of luxury. The network's mask did not dissolve. Status does not vanish when one case ends, but the scene around it changed a little. A housekeeper began to peel mattress liners as a habit. A front desk clerk started to print keycard audits when a guest fell silent past checkout. Card audits. A Free Zone guard looked twice at a visitor sticker that did not match the pass list. These are small acts. They build a different texture in places that often move on rhythm more than thought. Night returned to the yard with the same dry wind as always. The maintenance camera blinked its red dot into a corner of the frame. The cutter bay sat under a strip of tape that would be removed after the last photograph. Beyond the fence, trucks rolled along a road where ANPR cameras counted plates that did not know they were counted. The canal in Business Bay was a band of black glass under weak lights. The suite where the minibar had posted charges stood empty, its desk cleared, its safe reset. In the silence, the persistently hopeful fact remained. Logs keep their own witness, even when people fail theirs.